Good afternoon to one and all present here. I'm thrilled to welcome you to today's panel discussion on a topic of immense significance: India seeking more strategic autonomy in critical technologies. Hosted by the Center of Excellence for Geopolitics and International Studies at REVA University. This discussion brings together leading experts and thought leaders to explore how India can navigate the complexities of global technological landscapes and carve out a more autonomous and strategic path. Kindness is always fashionable and welcome. Leaders become great not because of their power, but because of their ability to empower others. It is now my pleasure to kindly invite Dr. Sanjay R. Chitnis, Pro Vice Chancellor, Strategic Initiatives, Industry and Innovation, to welcome the gathering.
Good afternoon. So it is a great excitement and a deep sense of honor that I welcome each one of you to this significant event. Today we gather not just as members of the REVA University community, but as part of a larger dialogue that resonates far beyond these walls. This occasion brings together some of the brightest minds and most influential voices to discuss a subject that is of paramount importance to our nation's future. India seeking more strategic autonomy in critical technologies. Organized by the Center of Excellence for Geopolitics and International Studies, REVA University. I would like to extend a special welcome to our esteemed panelists, Shri Rajiv Malhotra, Shri Sharad Sharma, Shri Shidhar Vembu, who is online, and Dr. Mohan TS, who is the moderator. Thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to this panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your warm welcome. It is an honor to introduce a trailblazer and a fearless intellectual warrior, Shri Rajiv Malhotra. In a world where narratives often shape realities, Mr. Malhotra stands as a formidable force, challenging biases and reclaiming the dignity of Indic thought on the global stage. Educated at some of the world's most prestigious institutions with a background in physics and computer science, Mr. Malhotra initially achieved great success in the corporate world. However, driven by a deeper purpose, he transitioned from boardrooms to the battlefield of ideas, becoming a relentless advocate for India's intellectual sovereignty. As the founder of the Infinity Foundation, Mr. Malhotra has systematically dismantled one-sided narratives about India, rekindling pride in our ancient heritage. Through his groundbreaking books, lectures, and debates, he has highlighted the contributions of Indic knowledge systems to the world. Mr. Malhotra's work is a mission to restore the rightful place of Indian civilization in global consciousness. His unwavering commitment to truth and his belief in our cultural roots have inspired countless individuals to think critically and take pride in their heritage. As we gather here to discuss matters of profound importance to our nation's future, we are privileged to be guided by a leader whose courage and conviction are unparalleled. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Shri Rajiv Malhotra. I would now like to request the Vice Chancellor to escort our Honorable Chancellor to felicitate our esteemed guest. We welcome you, sir. Over to our esteemed panelists.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ವೆರಿ Warm good afternoon. And I'm happy to be here. I'm your moderator, Mohan. And I'm very happy that we have an esteemed panel, Rajiv, Sharad, and of course, Dr. Sridhar Vembu here. And Sridharji, namaste. Thank you for joining us from Teni, I think, right? And it's very important that we all spend our time as efficiently as possible. There's just about 1 hour and 7 minutes before Rajiv has to leave this place to catch a flight. Okay, so let's do a fast, good job. And my request to the panelists and to Sridhar would be like we'll have it like a rapid fire. I have a bunch of questions to ask, and then we'll take the conversation from there and then spin it off to you all. And please ask pointed, simple questions. My request to you, don't give your opinions, please. Ask questions, blunt questions to the panelists, and we'll take it from there. We'll get them to unload as much of their wisdom and jnana to all of us here. Okay. On that note, if you had observed, we had this topic, India seeking even more strategic autonomy in critical technologies. Okay. On that note, maybe I should start with a very important question. We have Dr. Sridhar Vembu. Sridhar Vembu is a member of the National Security Advisory Board. And what that means is this thing called strategic autonomy is a very important goal that this National Security Advisory Board has to pursue, because in the world landscape, India matters. Okay, so the question to you, Dr. Sridhar Vembu, is this. What is this thing called strategic autonomy in the Indian context? What is very important to be making it really Indic and Indian? And how do we go about it?
Yeah, so I will, it's this topic can be approached from many different levels. I approach it from a very simple level. The phone in our pocket, it runs an Android or iOS operating system, and it has WhatsApp. Any of these technologies are very easily can be turned off on us, very easily. With the stroke of a pen, President Biden can turn this off from us. That's the reality today. Okay, any of these technologies, the Android phone, the WhatsApp network, any of these, and this has already happened to some other countries. So this is, to me, that's a classic example of. And today, so much of our economic networks, all that run on these systems, whether it be the phone network or the social networks and all of that, and including even the software that we are on right now. Any of these technologies is potentially in a geopolitical, a geostrategic landscape, when you think from that point of view, could be turned off on us. And we don't have enough technologies to replace them at all in some cases, or replace them quickly, in a reasonable time frame. So that is the problem. And this is on the very visible day-to-day use technologies. Then you can go back and back and back. Every semiconductor in our phone is made abroad. That is coming from usually TSMC in Taiwan, or maybe in other fabs in US, or sometimes maybe in China even. But as of today, we have just now started the semiconductor fab constructions in India, but we still have a long way to go before we are. And this is not just about economic security, about jobs. It's also about national security. It's about strategic autonomy on all these technologies. Because as I mentioned, all the surface level software that we use, from the Android operating system, the iOS, all of it, then the semiconductors in the phones, and then the technologies in our networks, and such critical technologies in our controlling our power stations, our power grids, all of it. And the question is, in an adverse geopolitical scenario, and we have to also accept the fact that what just happened in Bangladesh is not merely some kind of a popular uprising. There is a very strong geopolitical angle to it, and there is a regime change operation there, just like what happened in some other countries, in the Middle East. And we know that even Ukraine was very much a kind of a regime change type of scenario there. The way I liken Ukraine is how India and Nepal are. That's how Russia and Ukraine are. And so, these are countries that are very close, share a same common culture. And so when when Ukraine turns against Russia, then obviously it is a very provocative move on Russia. So this is the kind of thing that, given our neighborhood where we live, given what is happening in Bangladesh, given the even the forces at work even within India, and to influence our own elections, our own propaganda wars, all of that, we have to have a level of strategic autonomy in critical technologies. That includes all of the technologies we use day to day, and the technologies that are essential from our economic well-being, as well as even our defense preparedness. That includes communication networks, wireless networks, 5G, all of it. And I have not even come to latest topics, whether it's advanced AI, robotics, all of them. So those are, again, yet another layer to this. So that's how I will get started on this topic.
Wonderful, wonderful, sir. You have brought out one very important nuance, which I think we kind of missed out because we thought that critical technology should be the very advanced ones which are on the verge of getting to have breakthroughs, and we in India, we should dominate it. But what he brought out was very interesting, and I'm going to turn over to Sri Rajiv Malhotra ji, because Rajiv wrote a very interesting book, and this was about 3 years back, Artificial Intelligence and the Future of Power. Okay, and that's exactly what Rajiv kind of talked about, what Sridhar was saying. The mobile phone in your pocket is actually something which can be turned off from, say, USA, right? And if so, what then happens to your life? You can't book a Ola cab. You can't transfer money through UPI. You can't receive a call from your friend. And where's the power? Power is not in your pocket, it's somewhere else, right?
Correct.
And what he says is, commonplace technologies itself, we are so dependent. What about critical technologies? That's far off still. But then I want to take it to Rajiv Malhotra ji and say, Rajiv ji, 2 parts. There's something called Indic, which builds up the national level consciousness about we as people serving humanity at large. That is part 1. Part 2, your efforts in trying to understand artificial intelligence and how far is going to flow in the future, and how this conversation had happened about 3 years back. And the fact that in 3 years, what have we done? That's the question to you.
So, thank you. So, to take his Dr. Sridhar's point even further, not only can the technologies be switched off, they are already surveillance devices. They are doing surveillance on us, mapping our mind, our psychology, our profile, building it on for every person. And then models have been built on how to manage our thinking, how the behaviorism models on how to motivate you to buy things, how to motivate you to fight your ideology, whether you vote for this person or that person, whether you are in riot or something. So the data can be used like a psychologist who understands you can then manage you, can manipulate you. So that is one of the things that we discussed in this AI book many years ago. And really not much has happened since then. I coined the terms Google Devata, Facebook Devata, Twitter Devata, saying that these are the Devatas that are running our lives now. And I did it as a protest against Jio wanting to have these companies come and make big investments, because it was considered the pride of India that the reason they are coming to India because we are so good. We must be very important that other people want to come to us. Well, it's like saying that the chore is picked my house because I must be very powerful. And therefore, it's good news that the chore is coming to my house, because, then he won't come to some ordinary house, he's come to my house. So I'm feeling very proud of it. It is silly answers I got from the whole media, from the whole tech space and the industry, when I said that rather than licensing the WhatsApp and the Androids and all these and Google search engines as the way to manage our technology and saying, okay, this open source is very good because we don't have to develop, other people are spending the money and we'll get all the benefit. We need the sovereignty of developing ourselves. And I also criticized that, I've criticized for 15 years that we've rented the Indian brains for other people to use the brains, because the middlemen who rent out Indian brains in the services area are able to make a ton of money, and the other people are using our brains to make their technology. The technology, so much technology in the Microsoft and the Apple and the Facebook and NVIDIA and you name it, all these defense companies also, so much of the brains is Indian. But the technology is not owned by us. We are just workers. We're just a sort of labor, supplying labor. So that is a huge risk that is under our control. We should have by now done what China has done, which is that you do arbitrage by selling cheap wages to foreign countries, but you take that profit and reinvest it in developing your own patents and your own technology. China is 10 to 15 years ahead of us, while they started out as poor as us, and in some ways even poorer in 1947, 1950. But they did the smart thing, the smart technology, the smart investments, and we have gone into something short-term. Making short-term profits became the thing for us and not the long-term. So I have a lot to say, but I think this is enough to kind of get started.
So the question then goes to Sharad Sharma ji. Okay. So Rajiv ji brought out three things. One, the fact that we as Indians do not have the sense of pride to do what we think we should do as a counter to the products that we think we should prolifically use in our lives, right? If there's a WhatsApp, where's the Indian equivalent of it? If there's a Twitter, what happened to the Indian equivalent of it? What happened to Coup, right? And if you think that you need to get a job, should you get a job in an MNC or should you get a job in an Indian company that can really beat the MNC in their game, right? And I'd like to ask Sharad ji two questions. Question number one, strategic autonomy. But then what is Indic about it? Something has to be uniquely Indian, right? Because if China today has people swear by their own capability to be the manufacturing hub of the entire world, they slogged it out. It's not an easy path. Why is it that we Indians take the easy way out and not slog it out? That's Indic strategic autonomy. That's point one. Point two, which I want to ask you is, and this is critical. So, everyday technology itself, we are so indebted to the rest of the world that they can turn us off and we are anyway in limbo. Critical technologies are more important and they are going to set the stage, the way the influence is going to spread in the world stage. How do you think we can replicate the India Stack experience that you are very much part of and get that across the board so all these students out here can be future world leaders in their own pathway to doing something Indic and being a leader in the technology?
I'll start off with a story. President Trump, when he took office, he had a dispute with Turkey. There was a pastor that the Turkish people had imprisoned that he wanted released. So he started putting pressure on Turkey. The Turkey won't relent. And their lira fell by 40% mysteriously. They still won't relent. Then one day they capitulated. It turned out that the US had started shutting off their payment system for random times every day. So when the Turkish figured out what was happening, they said this is only a warning, right? And so this is what you mean by weaponization of technology. So when he's talking about this possibility of the mobile phone being switched off, is not completely out of possible realm of possibility. GPS can be switched off, which is why India has invested in creating its own GPS equivalent called Navic as we go forward. So these are real life situations. We ended up being on the receiving end of this in 2017, believe it or not. The Bangladeshis had come, they signed an agreement with Election Commission for the use of EVMs in Bangladesh. Everything was fine. The agreement was actually signed. When they went back to Bangladesh, all hell broke loose. Because people said, hey, this may be weaponizable. If you're in the good books of India, our elections will work fine. If you're not, they'll not work fine. Then we realized that if we have to actually occupy a space in the world, is to create non-weaponizable technology. So what has happened is today, I don't know how many of you know this, in Bangalore is an effort called MOSIP. It's in IIIT Bangalore. It's the Modular Open System Software for ID program. It has already got 22 countries signed up. So when anybody in Philippines gets a national ID, it's the Indian system. Sri Lanka, Morocco, you couldn't go on and on. And it is the largest used software out of India. I'm having informal competition with Zoho Sridhar here. Sridhar is going to overtake this soon. So it's really a battle between how many people outside India use Indian software, which is Zoho, and how many people out of India use this Indian software, which is called MOSIP. Now, so the point here is that when we apply ourselves to this problem of creating deeper technology that matters, it is possible to do that. But what prevents us is first and foremost the lack of self-belief that we can do that. Because for 25, 30 years, the narrative in India is be the back office of the world. Be the coolies of the world. That was our aspiration. That was a stated aspiration. So in an environment where you want to tell everybody, can you be a good coolie for the world, then that child and that or everybody just aspires to be a coolie for the world. I think what has started happening, the lasting legacy of India stack would be that it has given self confidence to many people in India, not just technologists but also policymakers, that when we apply ourselves to to this problem, we can generate strategic autonomy in whichever technology that we wish to make it happen. Now, the mechanisms will evolve. We'll discuss that as we go. There's still many, many challenges. We are not home free. But the first is to unshackle our mind from this thing that holds us back, that this is not for us, we can't do it. The reality is, if we apply ourselves, we can do it.
Wonderful. So the key messages that he shared, and by the way, I'll tell you this. I'm sure all of you have a mobile phone in your pocket, right? And you have done UPI payment to your shop or to the pushcart vendor or whatever. Did you use UPI? How many here have not used UPI? Raise your hand. Oh, there's one guy there sticking out who says he has not used. Maybe he should just join the crowd who has already used. But I want to tell you, if UPI is being used, the Sharad Sharma has been a critical person. He's a part of a team of people that made it happen. Okay. And what's important is if NASCOM has been in the world of services industries, software services, right? iSpirit is in the world of products industry, how to create a product ecosystem. All of you graduating out here should put in efforts to understand what entrepreneurship is, right? And then start your own industry. Be the master of your own destiny, right? And how do you do that? That's the kind of ecosystem that Sharad Sharma is talking all about. And the opportunities are plenty. Like what Sridhar told, even the everyday technologies, we are so indebted to the West. Is it not? And the key thing that Sharad mentioned was very interesting. He said, why is it that in Turkey, those guys discovered that they can't do what they wanted to do? Because they discovered that the payment system is, in quotes, weaponizable. And what Sridharji told and what Rajivji has been talking about in that book is all the technologies that you're holding in your hand and holding it dear, these are all weaponizable. That can be used against you. In fact, you're already manipulated. Okay? You're manipulated to such an extent that whispers, all the negative whispers that happens, they come and influence your thinking, and you're not really enthusiastic about standing on your own legs. And that's the key to this whole conversation. If you look at the books that Rajiv has written all these days, it's all about how do you bring back that original mojo of being a true Indian in the service of humanity at large. That's the key there, right? We were originally contributing to humanity in a variety of fields: mathematics, sciences, technologies, arts, literature, and all of that came to a very low level of late. Why? By the way, you are the inheritors of that heritage. So I think what Sridhar, what Rajiv, and what Sharad have been talking about is how do you ignite that spirit in you? So maybe now I should go back to Sridhar and ask him, Sridharji, Sharad spoke about the fact that we need to be Indic in order to put up with the difficulties in the process of trying to internalize the technologies from outside, come up with our own technologies. How difficult is it, or how easy has it been for you to come up with Zoho to make that difference? And now I believe you are running your offices from the rural India, and that's a very interesting, exemplary path for so many of the leadership people, industry people out here. So what is the challenges there? How do you get that Indicness inside you?
Yeah. So one way of thinking it's easy, one way of thinking it's hard. That's how I'm going to put it. It's both easy and hard. A lot of it is in the mind, how we think about it. I'll come to the hard part that's traditionally known to be hard. Where do you get the talent? How do you get the capabilities? All of that. That's the hard part. Like I want to build, say, a brand new compiler or a new foundational model or a robotic system. I sit here in Telecom. Where am I going to get the talent from? That's a very good question, right? That is a fundamental problem. But another way of thinking, even in Bangalore, we are not building all those things and we are not conquering the world. Why have we not done that? From Chennai, and the talent has been there. Why haven't we done it? That's where what Sharad talked about comes to this thing, that really what we have lacked is the confidence in ourselves, the self-confidence that we can do it, number one, and to stay the course. What's the difference between, say, a South Korea and Taiwan versus India in this? And you can also compare, for example, a Malaysia in the same category as India in this respect, that the discipline to stay the course, that it will take 15 years, 20 years to build a world-class fab or a world-class operating system or whatever, any of the difficult challenges, world-class fighter jet. And any of these will take a 10, 15 year, it's a decade-long project. The actual amount of money invested is not as important. In fact, that kind of money, scale of money needed for any of these is actually available in India today. The money is not the problem. It's the patience, the resolute mind, the willingness to stay the course in spite of setbacks. That's the hard part. In other words, in fact, I almost think that the money is the easy part, easy problem to solve, but the willingness to stay the course, stick to it, is the hard part. And examples like iSpirit show that we can actually do it. The whole UPI, the whole stack today is a testimony. And I tell you, it has powerful benefits. If not for it, we'd be paying a 2, 3, 4% toll for our digital payments today. In fact, Americans are paying easily a 3% toll on every transaction for digital payments. India is paying close to 0%. I don't know. Sharad will know the number. It's probably 0.2% or something. I don't even know. So that low, it was, if you had asked the typical vendors in the space, they would have said, no way it can be achieved. It can be achieved. That low friction. But India has actually achieved it. That's our ability to code, right? We can code this, we can design systems, all that. In exactly the similar way, we can build operating systems, we can build robotics, we can build advanced fighter jets, all that. What is needed is the visionary leaders to back these teams. Like you have, say, a 50%, 100% engineering team to build the most advanced rockets in the world. We need to stay the course, the discipline to stay the course, back them, take some adversity, take some failures, regroup, come back again. That is needed. That's, if there is only one thing that I learned in my entire 27 years in this business, it is that I have failed many times, but I didn't accept the failure. And I came back again, number 2, 3, 4th time. Sometimes our fourth release is the charm. That's when we find success. We have repeatedly found this in many, many products. So we just have that discipline to stay the course. If we believe in that market, if the technology is all obsolete, nobody is going to be there, then we abandon it. But if it's there, if it's vital, we stay the course. I think that's what we need in India.
That's a very interesting insight. Stay the course. You know what that means? You have to be very positively persisting in what you really want to achieve as an aspiration, and not be strayed away by the fact that a friend of yours has a BMW and you still have a Maruti 800. Okay?
Yeah.
Very important. But then I want to go back to Sharad and ask him a very interesting question there, because Sridhar pointed out something about UPI, right? UPI per transaction prices are very, very low. So much so that both Visa and MasterCard went on to complain to the US government to arm twist India to not allow UPI to spread. But now UPI has gone to France as well. But the bigger question is, how did this happen? I asked Sharad and he told me 3 factors. 1, regulation, 2, markets, and 3, technologies. But then I thought there's something more to it, and Sridharji brought it out in a very nice way. 4th parameter, it's called decolonization of the mind. We are all so colonized that we still want the easy way out. In order to stay the course, am I right? We need to be very clear in our mind that we really want to achieve what we want to achieve and make it happen. Decolonization of the mind. And then, of course, finally, what is critical is you need to ensure that you solve problems out here which are globally applicable. Am I right? So, Sharadji, building on what Sridhar just now told, what do you have as advice for all these youngsters, both in terms of staying the course, in terms of getting up with technologies which are really breakthroughs, which can be done by people, and in terms of this phrase called decolonization of the mind, which I'd like to come to Rajivji later. So, Sharadji.
No, obviously, yes, that self-confidence, decolonization is important. But you also need a template to make this all come together. There are many elements to this. I'll give you an example which you may not have heard of. See, no matter which mobile operator that you have, and not just in India, anywhere in the world, four companies sell their mobile equipment to them. They're called HENs: Huawei, Ericsson, Nokia, and Samsung. Right? It's no matter which airline you travel with, the planes come from Boeing and Airbus. So is it any surprise that Boeing and Airbus make more profits than all the airlines of the world put together? Similarly, it's no surprise that these hens actually make more money than all the mobile operators put together, whether it's Jio or Vodafone or Airtel or Verizon or anybody else that you're talking about. Now, telecom equipment is strategic technology, is critical technology. It's very important. So when there is a change taking place, 4G to 5G, there was an opportunity. The bizarre idea was, can we put, because we, India, and not just India, many other countries decided to drop off Huawei. So there's a slot that has opened up. So the thinking was, if you go and ask in the US, who's going to replace H in that hens, they will mention Mavenir or Cisco. You go and do that in Europe, and they'll tell you Alcatel, right? Although they already have two companies, Ericsson and Nokia there, but they want the third. And we asked ourselves a question, why can't it be an Indian company? Now, how many of you know that, in one of these podcasts, and I'm going to do this here, saying that I'm doing this bet. At that time, I said 2 years. I'm now saying only 18 months. My bet is that 18 months from now, all of you will readily agree with me that hens has become tens. That T that is replacing Huawei is a Bangalore startup called Tejas Networks, right? And how has it happened? Now, a small company cannot replace that easily. First of all, it's been around for 23 years. This persistent that you talked about, that Sridhar has displayed, is also what Sanjay Naik of Tejas displayed. 23 years he struggled. But when this opportunity came, this time he had the technology ready. But remember, a 5G network has many pieces. He was only building one piece. Then another very quiet person, R.K. Bhatnagar, got 16 companies together, most of them in Bangalore, with one exception. He said, look, you make only one piece of this 5G. So therefore, you have to go to hens and say, let me show it works with your system. They pretend that they want to allow you to do that, but by the time they give you certificate, it's already too late. So can you make sure that you build all parts of this system amongst the 16 of you? And it took a lot of cajoling to get them to agree to be able to do that. Finally, that system worked. There was a half an hour meeting fixed with our minister, at that time, Minister of Telecom, now and IT and Railways. Now Telecom is with a new minister, Ashwini Vaishnav. It was a half an hour meeting. You know what he said? He said, this is all bull crap. This is all screwdriver technology. And I think he was right to say that, because it was unexpected. He couldn't believe that this was happening. He spent, instead of that half an hour, he spent 6 hours poking. And he said, I'm an IIT Kanpur engineer. I can ask you questions. The next day, there's a team that came to poke further. And that eventually resulted in a decision that BSNL will buy Indian. But the government of India can't decide that it has to buy from one company. So it put an RFP. Reliance quickly acquired an American company called Radsys to participate in the RFP. TCS and Tech Mahindra services companies, the problem with the services companies is they have no technology, but they think they do. And so they participated as well. And Sterlite, a fiber optics company. They all got small cities to demonstrate this technology. Only, understandably so, one company could do that in Chandigarh. It became a single vendor RFP. Then eventually, despite it being a single vendor RFP, an order was placed on this. But you couldn't place an order of, at that time, an $800 million order, because that company's combined revenue, or that consortium's combined revenue, was only $250 million. So luckily, at that time, Chandra of Tata's came and bought 54% of Tejas in the open market. By then, Tejas had gone ahead and done its IPO. The government eventually has placed an order of $2.9 billion on this company, 100,000 base stations. I am not joking. You can humor me. You can go to social media and you now see these skits in the villages. One of my favorite ones is they have all these other operators. They are burying those operators and they are bringing out BSNL. Because with this new technology, BSNL is beginning to shine in the rural areas. And this kind of thinking where regulation is involved, where government policy is involved that uses domestic market, where good technology is involved, inflection is involved, persistence is involved, allows us to change the game. And so I'll end this. It is not just UPI, more is starting to happen. And now it is also telecom equipment, mobile telecom equipment, that they will have strategic autonomy in that area as we go.
Wonderful, wonderful. That gives a lot of hope and courage, encouragement for all you guys, right? If you want to choose to be an entrepreneur, get onto the bandwagon. Two parts. One is the new critical technologies that's coming up. The other is the existing technologies that need to be upstaged. Upstaged by whom? By you all. Okay, but then there's this thing which comes out persistently across in this conversation, and that's called decolonization of the mind, right? Maybe you should ask Rajiv ji. Rajiv ji, decolonizing the mind is what you have been talking for the past 30 plus years, I guess. And yet, here we are still stuck in the rut and unable to have the self-confidence that Sridhar Vembu is talking about, or the ability to critically think and independently at that, which a lot of the entrepreneurs are supposed to have. And the more important thing is, how do you give the Indic way to that? Because what is strategic autonomy all about but to bring out Indian characteristics of the strategic thinking? Rajiv ji.
One of the invisible, there are many visible colonizations, but one of the colonizations people have not taken seriously is the presence of foreign consultants in the government and industry. I'm talking about people like McKinsey and Price Waterhouse and Ernst Young and all these guys. They're nice people, and they have Indian CEOs and managers running here. But these guys report to somebody else somewhere. The positions, the policies they're developing for the government, including data security policies and technology policies and all kinds of policies, AI policies, I've read through these. These are all based on data which is sourced elsewhere. And at the end of the, the end notes you see are full of these kind of references. So we have become a little bit lazy. The government policymakers and other people have become lazy instead of investing in our own brains and doing research. Because if you research to come up with policy, you'll better understand your country. You have to have a bottom-up understanding of the politics and the society and the geography of India from the village up. Whereas it's easy to kind of engage one of these foreign people, and then they kind of cosmetically change it and make it look like the Niti Aayog fellow must have done it on his own, so he looks like a hero. But actually, and I pointed this out in the AI, in the AI book also, and many other books, lot of the one kind of colonization is colonization by foreign consultants. And the another one is a whole lot of NGOs. These are NGOs that are not necessarily within the FCRA because they are FDI. They are like, we had this Omidyar network, which we lobbied against. We wrote a whole report on the Omidyar network and what's wrong with it. And they've actually packed their bags and not investing anymore. But there's many more things of that sort. Now, in the United States, they have something called foreign agent registration law, which says that any entity, individual or organization, which is working for a foreign power, foreign country, foreign interests, has to register itself as a foreign agent. So I asked people in Delhi, is there something equivalent in India? Do we have a foreign agent law? I mean, or can a person be around here and basically loyal to the foreign entity on their payroll and lobbying for them and pushing their agenda? Could it be technology standards? Could be anything. Is there a requirement to say I'm a foreign agent? And the answer I was told was, this is by a senior person in the diplomacy. He said, no, there is no such concept here. So you need the decolonization of these kind of things. These are policies that could be done. You could have like China has passed a law that foreign consultants will not work for the government, and for other people, in areas which are sensitive, which includes use of data where that data is national data that cannot be given to a foreign entity. So it doesn't matter, you may have a Chinese CEO of McKinsey or Ernst & Young in Beijing and hiring only Chinese people, doesn't matter. The point is that they are owned and operated from a foreign entity. And so such people are not going to be able to get consulting jobs. Now, India needs to do something like that. It doesn't require, I mean, I know there'll be a lot of pushback because these people have made inroads. They've got friends. You know, I'm very unpopular saying such things because nobody wants to give up this very good, like an addiction. You can get help from these foreign entities, whether they're foreign NGOs, whether they're foreign consultants. People don't want to give that up because they have established themselves within the comfort zone of our thinkers, our machinery, and the amount they have invested is so much. I don't think we have a sovereignty, full sovereignty, because a lot of things they are running the show. So this is a very serious problem that I thought we should discuss.
Wonderful. So Rajiv ji essentially has brought out one very interesting aspect of this thing called decolonization of the mind. In fact, I kind of think you're hearing a lot of new terms and possibly you're hearing a lot of new viewpoints. And it's good for you to be able to do the homework of going back and then searching in the net what all this means and then what does it mean to be an Indian in that context and how you can not only create wealth, but also share wealth such that the whole idea of being truly sovereign comes out. So what Rajiv ji brought out was very interesting in terms of the institutional colonized thinking that really disrupts the renaissance of Indic thinking, also called as the development of strategic autonomy. So I want to go back to Sridhar Vembuji and say, Sridhar ji, look at the situation. You are here as a successful entrepreneur, a person who has made a big difference to the society at large, both at home in India as well as the world, in kind of providing alternative technology that's really, really cost effective, much like how UPI is perhaps. More importantly, you are advising the government too. So Rajiv ji brought out this very interesting aspect of the colonized minds, where you want to get the best from the rest of the world, but the rest of the world does not give it to you for free because they have their agendas. How do you then filter out the agendas, get the best, and then build up the intrinsic strength of how India can be what it was long back to be able to add value to the world at large? Decolonizing the Indian mind at the governmental level, sir.
So in order to do that, first we must understand ourselves, self-knowledge, our own who are we as a people, as a nation, all that. And I'll again speak not in terms of generalities, but very specifics. We are 1.4 billion people, 23 million babies are born every year in India. China is only about 9 million. USA is about 3.5. So we are two China plus one USA, one Japan, one South Korea, one Taiwan will come up to about 23 million now. That's one India. So all of that you put together, two Chinas, right? Right there. This is very unique. Nobody, no other country on the planet, and no other even some collection of countries could can mimic our stature in this in terms of just sheer demographics we have. That must be kept in mind. The second is the sheer density. There is no, I'm supposedly I live in a remote village. Okay, it's about 650 kilometers southwest of Chennai, about 650 kilometers from Bangalore as well. So if I go straight up north, I hit Bangalore. So now it might be remote, but even this very rural district, Tenkasi, has a population density about 400 people per square kilometer. And if you go look at an entire very suburban state in the US, they will have a slightly lower population density than this rural district. Even rural areas in India have a population density that is actually higher than suburban US. Leave rural US. I mean, suburban US has actually lower population density than us. So that is, and that's something we have to realize. Why I'm mentioning all this is our demographics, our population density, all of this dictate that, and we are 800 districts. That's how we think about it. Each of our districts is at least as populous as Estonia, the nation of Estonia. The entire nation is actually smaller than each of our 800 plus districts. So we have to actually, that means 800 Estonias still won't come to one India. You still won't come to one India. So we have to keep all this in mind, which means that we have to think different, think our own like solutions to that. That's what I look at as Indic. Now the second, we talked about the global geostrategic challenges. There is a climate challenge. It's very real now that the climate change is happening. Every year the heat waves are increasing, all that. Now we have to think here, if the average Indian is going to consume the same amount of energy as the average American, can the earth really stand that? Can India, our people, can we stand that? We are already reaching 50 degrees centigrade, unheard of temperatures in many parts during summer. So that means, again, one more time, we have to find our own solutions to our problems. And that includes, for example, our part of, to me, the Indic way of thinking is we are all connected. Nature, the trees, the mountains, the hills, the soil, the earthworm, the snake, all of that is part of me. That is the thinking that we are drilled into from childhood. This is our part of our Indic culture. The dualistic pattern of thought. I think Rajiv ji has talked about a lot of this. What is the core of this Indic philosophy? It is this respect for nature, respect for everything there is. And this has to inform our economic thinking too. Though it's foundationally, our economics has to be built on this self-realization. Without it, we are going to burn this earth to a crisp. That's where it is heading. Development is meaningless if we are going to all kill ourselves. So that's why I think if you put all this together, and I am an optimist, I'm going to tell you this, there are solutions in our way of life, our way of thought, and you can embrace simplicity, and you can have enough prosperity. Nobody has to be very poor, nobody has to be poor, but we can embrace a life of simplicity. All of that is possible. Self-reliance in technologies, all of it, but provided we first have that self-realization. Who are we? And this is where I'm going to offer a criticism. If you look at India from 1947, at first we embraced the Soviet model of development. Soviet Union provided us the truth. Before that, we were very much in the British sort of model, a British pattern of thinking, because they colonized us. Then after 1991 liberalization, we smoothly switched to the Washington consensus, the American-led model of development. And at some point, we have to come to our own Bharatiya model of development. We have to think for ourselves. I think that is the real decolonization of mind here. So, thank you.
Wonderful. The Bharatiya model of thinking that we need to do in order to be able to decolonize our minds, and more importantly, how do we do that in the institutions that need to be called out for, and how do you make a difference? As youngsters, you can chart pathways. He was mentioning that he's very optimistic. There's a lot of hope on you guys, and there's so much of responsibility on you guys. And I think as a university, REVA University has a huge institutional responsibility of trying to decolonize the minds, nurture the entrepreneurship, and then spark the fires to make a difference, which India Stack has happened. So let me get back to Sharad, and then after a few minutes, I'll throw open the floor for you all to ask questions to these eminent panelists. Okay, so institutional support. In fact, I had a conversation with one very interesting and eminent technologist of Bangalore, Sanjay Anandram, and he was telling me a lot of the talk on strategic autonomy is all rhetoric, because people nicely get together, they give all the high-flying talk. What is the outcome? The outcome which I look forward to from this conversation today is that you guys are going to carry the message which possibly he'll give right now. What is the message? How do you institutionalize 2-3 things? One, a behavioral change, right? As a technologist, how do you institutionalize behavioral change? How do you change the institutions to embrace strategic autonomic thinking? That is 2. And third thing, because he was in the private sector, he has interacted with the government, he's part of that ecosystem called iSpirit. What are the challenges that you faced in making all this happen? And what do you think we should all be doing, especially youngsters here?
I'll pick on behavioral change because you talked about it in the book. The AI is becoming a tool. Social media is the first application of AI at scale, right? So, and we know that has resulted in a lost generation in the West. It is now you live there. You'll probably agree with me that is now mostly accepted that there is a lost generation. Now think of it: the largest number of 15-year-olds and under 15-year-olds in the world are in India. As you heard Sridhar talk about, India has 23 million babies. The next 5 countries put together don't have 23 million babies. We carry the responsibility for the future of the humanity. Now, this group of people are very vulnerable. AI can do good things to them, can make them better students, can make them eat better, succeed in sports better. But technology will also create more distractions. It'll create better pornography, better games, better gambling. And we know this is going to corrode our young people if we don't think outside the box. Now, the West is not thinking about it because they don't have enough babies. They don't have enough young people. This is a responsibility given to India for humanity to solve for the rest of the world. In fact, it's only if it works in India will it work in any part of global South. If it works in France, do you think it will work in Africa? Maybe, maybe not. But if it works in India, will it work in Africa? You can be sure it will. So the question is, we have these population scale challenges before us. We are not short of challenges. And I agree with Sridhar, we are not even short of money. Now I feel in the youngsters I see, we are not even short of self-belief and aspiration. What we need more than anything else is now proper teamwork. Teamwork not merely as individuals, but teamwork across institutions to make it happen. His alma mater, ISC, has to now find a way to deal with startups in a way that had never been done before, right? And you were there earlier today. So we need the institutional collaboration. Now that requires turfism to go away. Today, our institutional leaders all believe in turfism. They don't believe in collaboration. And we have to change that mindset. Now, the reason I'm optimistic that this mindset will change, I think it will be China. China is our best friend. It is showing to us, it is doing to us what we did to Pakistan. Pakistan stepped up and said, we are equal to India. We would rub its face on the floor. Now it doesn't say we are equal to India. China is, believe me, doing that to us today. So our policymakers, our senior elites are getting a shock of their life because their face is being rubbed on the ground all the time. They are realizing that if we don't change course, we will not be able to show our face in the world. We won't have the geopolitical power we crave. We won't have the strategic autonomy that we crave. We won't have the economic prosperity that we crave. So I am grateful to China for showing us down, for being an adversary to us. It will force us to change in the right direction as we go.
So should we really go that way? We should ask Rajiv ji, because Rajiv ji has been trying to influence youngsters at large. Now we have the demographics. Demographic dividend was a very interesting phrase at some point of time, but it could also be a democratic disaster, because you see what has happened in Bangladesh. The youngsters' energies are channelized in the wrong directions, and you see the chaos, anarchy, and the persecution of the Hindus there. So we should ask Rajiv ji. Rajiv ji, what do you have to say on both the demographic and the institutional changes that Sharad ji is talking about?
So I want to address your earlier question about what is truly Bharatiya, what is distinct. This may, you have to think about it before you kind of react too quickly. I think one of the most quintessential Indian qualities is meritocracy. Because the fruit vendor, anybody you see, they're so much into efficiency, meritocracy. Whether they have to do jugaad, if they have to break the law, they'll do that also. But the meritocracy of getting ahead is a whereas in China they've been brought up in a collective, collective thinking, and individual meritocracy. You don't sort of get ahead on your own. Now, this meritocracy is what built the United States as a technological power. They're all kind of industries in the last 100 years, whether it was automobiles or airlines or computer mainframes or whatever. All these big industries that are employing people today, most of them were invented in the United States, not companies, but entire industries. And this was done by individuals who were very meritocratic, exceedingly innovative people. So the Indians' mind is like that. In fact, the best proof is that the Indians are doing so well in the meritocracy-based US tech companies, where they don't have quotas and those kind of things to worry about. There's not that much identity politics, although things are changing, unfortunately. But if you consider the Indian meritocracy as a great asset, what is holding it back now is identity politics. This is actually a very serious matter that has to be discussed, that you have to keep identity politics out and compete on meritocracy to build a technological powerhouse.
Interesting point. In fact, we kind of import all these fake ideas from the West into building identities, sub-identities, and whatnot. On that note, a big thank you, and I'd like to hand over the podium floor to the organizers.
Thank you to our panelists for such an insightful discussion. Collective work is the secret behind the progress. Thank you is a prayer that has to be felt by heart. Now, I call upon Dr. Vijay Shakuja, Professor and Head Geopolitics and International Studies, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Honorable Chancellor, Dr. P. Sharma Raju, eminent panelists, Team REVA, ladies and gentlemen. I think we've been treated to a seminal discussion. There are lots of thoughts, ideas, concepts, as Dr. Mohan said. New keywords, new ideas, concepts have emerged. I think it's very important for us to first to socialize into those. Those are extremely important, and they probably will soon become part of our curriculum. My purpose is not to sum up or anything, but suffice to say that we at the Center of Excellence for Geopolitics and International Studies have begun a very, very preliminary work. Rather, preliminary conversations have begun in the form of how we're going to use the disruptive technologies to do geopolitical analysis as also predictions. I think there's a lot for us. We have picked up a lot of ideas from you all, eminent persons today, and we are hoping that next time when you're here, probably we'll be able to share with you what progress we've made. And thank you once again for being here with us and not only educating us, as a matter of fact, creating an excitement amongst our student fraternity here. Thank you very much, sir.